Safaris can be awfully fun, but they can also be quite deadly. This is why today we're talking about 10 times safaris have gone wrong. Take a gander at the time a massive feline attacked a BBC film crew, and of course, the time when one of the most dangerous creatures in the world charged straight at another film crew's vehicle. So here we have our number 10 pick. Wild elephant attacks safari. While elephants are usually referred to as some of the gentlest and friendliest creatures, we should never forget the fact that they are a massive wild creature that can easily trample any human in sight. A Loxodonta africana elephant, for example, can weigh in almost 6,000 kilograms in total, which makes it quite a dangerous threat to anyone that is within reach of them. Not only that, but they can also run as fast as 40 kilometers per hour, which makes them insanely hard to get away from. As Bhupender and Jagruti Raval quickly learned during their expedition, as they were having the time of their lives exploring a nearby forest in central Kerala, the two found themselves actually greeted by 3 elephants not too far from where they were supposed to go. They stopped the car and decided to take a few pictures of the massive creatures, but this was the wrong thing to do. As they started snapping the pictures, it wasn't long before the creatures went wild and began trampling them alongside the 6 others that were in their vehicle. The 2 were essentially trampled until they were completely mush, but the rest managed to get out alive. The guide is still under medical care to this day. Number 9. Wild leopard attacks guide. A man by the name of Curtis Plum was working as a guide for a very long time, but despite this, he apparently didn't have enough experience under his belt to know not to mess with the wildlife from up close. As he was cruising with other tourists, they couldn't help but notice the massive leopard approaching them. Curtis laughed and decided to open up the car door so they could get a better view of the feline. What he didn't notice is that the leopard had made its way to the next car, biting down on his arm and pulling him down. The tourists all started coming in and kicking, punching, and even hitting the leopard with the door, hoping it would let go. Finally, he managed to free himself and he started driving, but the leopard jumped on the hood trying to get back inside to Curtis. He pushed down the brakes and the animal flung forwards, only for Curtis to drive over it a few seconds later. The leopard had to be put down because of its injuries, and Curtis luckily made it out alive after a couple of hours of surgeries went down. Number 8. Wild lion attacks tourist. 64-year-old Patrick Forgaud and his wife Bridget were just minding their business camping out at the safari when all of a sudden, they were actually visited by none other than the king of the jungle himself, a lion. When they first saw it, it was right on top of Bridget, smelling her back. But before they could react, Patrick tried getting up only to be bitten by the arm and start being pulled back out of the tent by the massive feline. As the rest of the crew got out and began chasing down the lion, they turned their attention back to Patrick, hoping that he was fine all along. Sadly, however, his whole arm had been munched on and his triceps was actually entirely torn off. He had to undergo a lot of surgeries to ensure that he would make it out alive. Luckily, he did, but according to them, the couple still have nightmares about the incident to this day. Number 7. Wild rhino attacks safari. Not only are rhinos extremely fast and powerful, but they are also amongst the smartest creatures that you'll ever encounter in the wild. This is why most of the time, whenever a safari team comes across a rhino, they quickly ride off as they're afraid that the rhinos will get too close and they'll never escape their piercing horns. This is what happened to a lot of people over the years, as rhinos quickly became known as the most violent creatures in the wild since most safari attacks involved them. With that being said, as mentioned previously, they can be extremely smart, which results in them attacking the wheels of the vehicle to make it stop riding away. Number 6. Wild buffalo attacks safari. Buffaloes actually get a pretty bad reputation, even though they're quite friendly creatures. Usually they keep to themselves, almost never starting the attacks themselves, but sometimes safari crews can get a bit too close, irritating the massive creatures, which results in them charging at the cars. Remember, this is a wild tank we're talking about. It's one of the largest mammals in the world, growing as massive as 4 meters in length, weighing in at around 1,000 kilograms each. When such a massive beast crashes into your car, there's no stopping and checking for damage. You drive as far away as possible unless you want to be squashed by the monstrous beast yourself. That's how dangerous wild buffaloes can be. Number 5. Wild tiger attacks tourist. This story comes to us from a couple of years back, 2016 to be precise, when 3 tourists decided to drive themselves to the Badaling Wildlife World Reservation in China. The only rule that they had to follow at all times was that they were never to get out of their cars. And as you can tell already though, they didn't follow this simple task, as the daughter by the name of Zhao went outside after having an argument with her mother. Because she was screaming, she didn't notice she attracted the attention of a nearby Siberian tiger, which quickly grabbed a hold of her and began mauling her. Her mother jumped in and started fighting the beast, but before the crew could intervene, she lost her life. Luckily, her daughter survived the attack and ended up suing the park for $170,000. Number 4. Wild hippo attacks couple. While they were on a canoe safari down the Zambezi River, a couple decided that it would be a good idea to not paddle away from the massive hippo that was swimming around a mere couple of meters away from them. They thought that they were safe, but before long they were proven wrong as Kristen Yaldor was pulled under the water where she was bitten and mauled on by the hippo. Luckily, she made it out alive, and she ended up going through several surgeries to make sure that she could return to a somewhat normal lifestyle after such a traumatic event. Number 3. Wild bear attacks car. So many people are used to seeing bears in zoos, so they assume that they are not all that scary to be faced with. The problem here is that they forget just how massive these wild bears are. They forget just how deadly they can be too. Sloth bears, for example, are the most common type of bears to attack trespassers, which there are plenty of, since people can be really stupid when they see wild animals, trying to get close so they can get pictures with them. Bears are always scary, so keep your distance please. You don't want to be alone with one at any time of the day. Trust us. Number 2. Wild giraffe jumps in front of a tourist car. As a team of tourists were just minding their business driving in their Ford Ranger safari camper, they couldn't help but notice that the roads were a bit too dusty and the weather was extra windy, which made it impossible to see a foot in front of you. Despite this, the guide wanted to impress, so he went full speed ahead. Sadly, this resulted in them crashing into the giraffe, which resulted in the death of both the giraffe and one of the tourists on board. Number 1. Wild lion attacks guide. This is a story about a hero by the name of Quinn Swales. He actually jumped in front of his tourist to stop a nearby lion from attacking them. As the tourist ran away, Quinn was mauled to death by the wild animal, but because of his sacrifice, everyone else made it out alive that day. Quinn was a hero, and he gave his life away so that all those people could live theirs to the fullest. We could all learn a thing or two from Quinn, couldn't we? Those were some scary stories. Which was the scariest for you? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, be sure to click on the recommended videos on the left and right side of the screen for more amazing content from us. See ya!